Here we go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learn From Us podcast. Strange situation, Paul. We are not in the studio today. We are at our home. Well, you're at your home. I can see in the background there. And I'm in the I'm in the Japanese stock market over here. Is this Chinese behind me? I can't tell.
Who knows?
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Learn From Us podcast. It's Paul and Seth, your pals. We are going live today. Screw it, we're going live. And this is one of the first times this is the first time we've done this, Paul, and we're very excited about this. Just a quick introduction if you've never followed us before. We started this podcast about a year and a half ago. We've shot about 140 video episodes. And basically the premise of the show is me, normal person, brings questions to Paul. Paul is, in my opinion, one of the most successful business owners and entrepreneurs I've ever met. And so I've been very blessed to speak with him on a bi-weekly basis, stressing the word bi, Paul, for you. And just, learning about Paul's business life from part owner of 12 to 15 businesses at any point in time?
Yeah, something like that. Somewhere
around $100 million in real estate assets.
In total assets.
A
little north of 100.
Nice. So we wanted to get together to obviously bring you our content a little more quickly as opposed to recording and then delaying the recording, obviously with the craziness of the COVID, as Paul likes to call it, the Kung flu. Sorry.
Listen, it's just funny. That's all I'm saying about Kung flu. When I heard it, I was just like, oh my God, that's brilliant.
Great, Paul. And we just lost half our listeners on YouTube. But anyway, Paul, tell us a little bit, I think one of the main points we've discussed on our show for months now is the overpriced market that's around and how you were kind of calling for this correction for a while. And,
I don't call for a correction. I wasn't calling for a correction.
Well, you were expecting.
I was calling for a massive crash.
Talk about it, and tell Lisa in the background to talk a little louder. I think is.
Hey, Lisa, you're distracting us here.
Go ahead, Paul. Talk about life before this and how you were seeing this coming to a head.
Well, so I didn't call the Corona thing, and I would never ever have even thought that. And this whole Corona thing has been way worse than I could have ever expected. Don sent an email to us, an article, the New York Times expecting that the unemployment rate would be 13% in its first reporting for March. And March was the start of it. Like, we haven't even seen the worst of it. I don't know if it's true or not, but my whole premise was stocks are massively overvalued. There will be some trigger that we don't see. Ended up being Corona. It always works this way. This is not news. This is not like, if you look at all the bubbles in history, they're usually popped by something that you can't even see, except for 2000. I don't think there was anything that popped 2000 except just capitulation. But this whole Corona thing has been insane. It is the trigger. Look at it. Yesterday we were up 7.5%. Today we're up 10% in 2 days. And the numbers for unemployment in the last 2 weeks have been just insane. We hit a low of like 2180 intraday, and we were at a peak of 3383 on a close, 3393 intraday on the S&P in the last 6 weeks. I mean, this is a massive collapse, but I still think we have way more to go. I think the S&P will hit 1,500, if not a little bit lower. So call me crazy, call me you want, but I mean, we're talking about people being unemployed. We're talking about business. I mean, we ordered out for Indian food yesterday. I talked to the guy who owned the place. I'm like, hey, how's business? He goes, yeah, we're surviving. We're down 50%. 50%. And in the food business, that's tough. So I just don't think we're at the end of, like, everybody thinks there's gonna be this V-shaped recovery. All of a sudden we're gonna bounce back and be amazing. Yeah, I don't see how that happens. I think it's gonna be we still have to get people back into the mode and back into doing things. So I don't know what that's gonna be, but either way, this is just the way it's gonna play. It's gonna play out some horrible way, and there's gonna be a lot of people losing jobs, and it's unfortunate. But when you have overvaluation and an economic boom that wasn't based on anything besides, artificially inflating asset prices, what do you expect?
Go into more. Tell normal people who are watching, go into more about your thoughts about the market 3 months ago and why it was at a state it was in.
So my thoughts were, when we had the Grant Cardones of the world saying 6% is better than zero, that was caused because interest rates were so low. So people's thought process was, well, I can get 2% dividend on the S&P, so I might as well buy the S&P. It's better than zero. My thought process was, yes, you're getting that 2% dividend. You might be getting 5 or 6% yield paying cash for a piece of real estate that was overpriced, but it's better than zero. But my argument was the more and more we paid for assets that weren't fundamentally getting better, you didn't see the earnings growth in the S&P over the last 10 years, which is the profit that was generated. A large percentage of it was because of lower interest costs on companies. So companies that had a lot of debt used to have 5.5%, 6% debt. Now it was 2.5%. You're going to show a lot of, if you have $10 billion in debt, you're going to show $300 million more in profit by doing nothing more. Not having more revenue, not having more any fundamental profit. So people were just building up these asset prices, and they see stock prices going up and real estate prices going up. And what do you think? You're like, oh, I might as well just keep buying more and more because it keeps going up. Well, eventually the buyers go away. Eventually something happens that gets people to go, hang on a second, I care suddenly about prices. And that's what happened recently. Coronavirus was the trigger that caused this big collapse. And we saw the fastest bear market in history, followed by the shortest bear market in history, because now we're back into a bull market now officially.
Maybe go back a bit. You said that you never obviously expected a downturn like this. Like, I guess the real question I want to know, and I've been dying to know, is, and hoping you're telling me, is when will this? I know you don't know when this will bottom out, but I know you guys have been looking toward the first quarter earnings and when the actual facts come in about how many jobs are gone, how many companies are down. When are you thinking you're going to take that massive amount of cash you have been sitting around for 4 years and invest it?
So I've already started investing a little bit. I've bought 4 or 5 companies. They're doing pretty well. The whole plan is, as time goes on, I will keep buying as stocks fall. There are some stocks I'm not touching for them to fall until they fall by 50%. There are stocks that I bought today. I'm going to keep, I didn't buy full amounts. I bought my starting point. As they go further south, I bought BP at 15. And everybody's like, dude, that was incredible. No, I wanted to go to 10. I was hoping it was going to go 15. And as it went down, I was going to keep buying more and more. And eventually I'd get a big position in there at an average of 12 or 13 bucks. But instead it went the opposite way. It went straight up. I'm still holding BP. And as it goes lower, I will probably buy more. But there's no timing to it. There's more of, hey, this is a good price here. Let me dip my toe in and buy maybe 10 or 20% of what I want to buy. And as it goes lower, I will keep buying more. This works for me. The average investor out there should be sticking to their plan. Every month, they put X amount of dollars in their 401k, Roth, 403bs, everything they can, their 529 plans, anything you can put your money into. And every month, you just buy the market as a whole. And as it goes down, you're going to buy along the way. And when it goes back up, you're going to buy along the way. So you're going to do what's called dollar cost averaging. But for me, a guy who can afford to be wrong for a while, I'm just going to buy the stocks I want to buy, the individual stocks I want to buy. And those are probably 15 or 20 at the end of the day, and just buy them along the way down.
Now, you mentioned it. We'll do some show where you're going to share which stocks you're in love with nowadays.
Yeah, so I have a list of not stocks that I'm in love with, but actually I can share my screen right now and even show some stocks right now that I'm watching if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead. I think some people like to see what someone like yourself is investing in, and then we'll get to some questions after that. So,
all right, how do I share my screen?
So the chat is saying they're not a surprise you're in the Oval Office. Of course, I get a lot of beard love.
Of course. So this is Y charts. And these are a list of 74 stocks, companies that I've bought. So my plan here, not bought, that I'm looking at. So my plan here is I've picked big names, companies that are big, companies that I think will be around for a while. This one is Signet, is something, Liz. Signet's is a company that's local that I like, that I've been looking at. It's a little hard to understand, but a lot of the other ones are ones I'm looking at as big names that I want to own, like 3M, Microsoft, Google, Pfizer, Home Depot. These are big names that as they get beaten up big time because the market gets beaten up, I'll be able to buy for much lower valuations. And that's my goal there. Like some of these are selling for reasonable prices now, but oops. But as time goes on with TJ Maxx, Merck, Apple, these are all companies that are ADP, Nike. You know, you see big companies that you sit there and say, okay, Disney stock, these are all the companies win. I'm not telling people to buy them. What I'm doing is I have these 74. And when the market gets to a point where I think based on historicals, it's where it should be or lower, I'm going to start picking and choosing these companies and start buying individually based on the ones I think are best financially settled. And the big thing here is I want to see what happens when the real economic numbers come out, because these are all going to take big hits. And that's what I want to see, like how we haven't even seen any economic numbers really in terms of what GDP did, in terms of what unemployment is going to be. Once that hits, then I'll be able to determine how are these companies surviving that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if you look on our podcast, Paul's done some evaluations of some companies, and we're going to do more of this, where Paul analyzes sort of the health of the companies in terms of what they make and what their stock is. And
did you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah, it was great. It's on the live feed too. It's great.
Oh, good. Okay, not anymore though, right?
No, you're good. I can see you. So okay, we have a couple questions. Sheriff H asked. Sharif, yeah. What is your assessment of the future of the housing market in the U.S. from an investment standpoint?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm actually surprised he gave a serious question, because tends to be a little bit of a goofball, but I like him. Again, just like everything, I have to think with high unemployment and lower GDP that it's going to affect housing significantly, especially considering housing was one of the biggest booms during this low interest rate environment. Even though we still kept the low interest rates, if you don't have the income, you don't have the employment to support that, it will take a big hit. If you're looking to buy a house right now, actually a friend of mine did reach out to me recently. He said, hey, I'm in contract on a house. What should I do? I said, get out of the contract. He's like, really? I'm like, listen, have you sold your house yet? He said, no. I go, are you comfortable having 2 mortgages? He said, no. I said, then I would exit this purchase. And he did. And that was a very individual advice. If he said to me, Paul, I have no problem having 2 mortgages. I don't care. I'll rent the other house out. But his comment to me was, no, I do not want to have 2 mortgages. So I basically said to him, fine, then just get out of the mortgage, get out of that the contract, which he did, and wait. You're not going to hurt yourself by waiting. Now, if you're trying to sell a house into this, just remember you're probably going to take a hit along the way. What were you smiling about, Seth? What did somebody say?
Oh, I'm trying to read like all the serious questions that are mostly about my beard. Okay. Do you think the economy will ever be the same again? Do you think it will affect how much money people will make per hour? Like, we just had a lot of companies were going in the direction of raising minimum wage and wanting that. What is this world going to look like by Christmas, Paul?
Oh, I have no idea, but I will say in the long run, we will be a better economy. Just like after the Great Depression, we ended up having a massive boom for many years. Just like after the late 70s and early 80s, when we had major inflation, we had the biggest boom in our history. We will be better. It might be painful for a while, but as a country, we will do better economically. Companies will do better, and crappier companies that shouldn't have been around will go under. And the companies that stayed will hire more people because they will have more demand. This will always end up being better. It's hard to see that in the middle of it. Might be hard to see that at the beginning, but when we come out of this, however long it takes, we will be a better country and better economy because of it, if we do the right things along the way.
So can you elaborate on that? Because as a normal person, it just seems all bad. I don't remember I wasn't in tune with the economy after the recessions before. So elaborate on what you mean by that. What do you think is going to happen?
People lose a lot of jobs, but companies will become leaner, become smarter. It'll lead to more innovation. It will lead to smarter ways of making money. When times are good, you get complacent. You're like, I don't need to go do that. How many business people said to me, I don't do that. Why? Well, because I'm fine. Business is good. Okay, yep. Sounds good. And more power to them. You're in the photography business. Everybody was a photographer right now, and all you need to do was a camera. But all of a sudden now, soon it'll be, photography might be discretionary income that people say, hey, I'd rather save the money. As a country, we weren't saving a lot of money. Once we start saving money and more of it, we will do better, and we will be able to grow and have a better foundation and establish ourselves as a better economy, and that'll lead to more stable foundation in the long run.
I was saying on previous podcasts that I obviously I can never remember a time where this is such a forced recession, forcing places to close down. I sent you an article yesterday. I read last night, there's 110,000 restaurants that are expected to never open their doors again.
That doesn't even sound like a lot to me. 110,000? That didn't even seem like a lot. That's only 2,000 per state.
What are all these people supposed to do, Paul? We talked about where you've been and where your investment company's going. But putting your mind into a restaurant worker or bartender, What
Okay, well, that's a great question. So the analogy I always give is, when the car was invented, did everybody who was involved in stagecoaches and locomotives and all these things lose their jobs forever? No, we adapt. Economies adapt. When the restaurants that close down, people aren't going to stop eating that portion. They're going to start ordering from other places. Other restaurants will get busier. They'll need to hire more people. Other companies will be able to say, hey, I can get less, like look at us. We're right now looking to expand our sales department. Why? Because before it was so difficult to hire salespeople because everybody was getting such big money for doing very easy jobs. Now we're going to be able to hire more salespeople to do things for us because we provide a decent base salary and they might have lost their job doing other things. So other businesses that are better financially off will be able to expand and do more. And that's what happens. There's always cycles. And it doesn't, just because somebody loses their job, just because one industry gets worse doesn't mean it's gone forever or that other industries won't get better. It's an ebb and flow. And that's what happens. We're just going to have that for a while.
Mike Wagner asks, how do you think it's going to affect the presidential election? How will it affect the market?
Great question.
Because, this is the one year I feel like that we have yet. I don't know when the usual bombardment of like election commercials start coming out, but it seems like it's been obviously not a topic of discussion. And so what do you think?
What is going on with the election? There's no campaigning whatsoever. This is listen, as much as you hate Donald Trump, and I'm not a huge fan, how he handles this is what's going to determine the election. If he handles this well and it's perceived to be, his approval rating was the highest it's ever been, 49% recently with this. And presidents can do well in time. Look at Bush. I think he got to 92% for 9/11. If he handles this well and people perceive the economy is getting better, or he's handled it well, then I think he'll get reelected. If he doesn't and he's perceived to have not handled it well, it's a no-brainer. It's going to be Biden or whoever it's going to be for the Dems. It's just the way it works. That's just the way. I thought I always said if he had a bad stock market, Trump would get reelected. But based on the tales of a coronavirus, something that technically isn't his fault, it might end up being okay for him. You know what I mean? It might end up making him more popular. Whatever happens, happens. Was that a good answer? Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm just reading some of the things.
All right, give me another question.
All right. I'm with you. I don't know what to expect this fall. I've read articles that, Biden, this gives Biden a chance to win. He can blame this on Trump and maybe the poor response they had to this. But either way, who knows? It's going to be interesting.
Look at Matt's question. Why don't you ask Matt's question? Would you stay away from companies that are doing exceptionally well lately and may take a hit when we return back to normal? Great question, Matt.
Yeah, companies like Zoom, Netflix, CVS.
Yeah, so here's a great example. Just like if a company takes a bad hit today, I wouldn't avoid them completely just because they're taking a bad hit. Cruise lines. I think the best thing to do with cruise lines is see who survives and who has the best business after their survival, because they're taking a big hit. I wouldn't just ignore them, just like I wouldn't just go buy a company because they're doing exceptionally well today. Netflix is going to take a big jump and Zoom are taking a big jump temporarily. Does that mean that they won't benefit from this long term? They absolutely will, but don't extrapolate out a big gain today into the future indefinitely. This is what causes bubbles. When people say, oh, this worked today, it's going to work forever. No, not necessarily. Just be cautious. Look for good fundamental businesses with good cash flow that maybe they got a nice bump here, but you have to even everything out. Don't just take one-time bump as forever. Just even everything out. You have to make an analysis on what's this business going to look like for a long period of time. If you can't determine that, as Warren Buffett says, if I can't determine a company's profitability for the next 5 or 10 years, I ignore it. Same thing.
You laughed at me because I bought Netflix a few years ago just because I liked the company, and I looked last night. It had gone up 285% since I bought it.
Well, good for you, genius.
Look at me. Where do you think the price of gold will be, and is it a good investment? Gold stocks or
I have bought gold, and I have bought gold companies because I can't take credit for this. This was analysis done by a good friend of mine, Michael Mostel. He's been looking at gold for a few years now, and he's been beaten up. Gold is what people will flock to, theoretically, during bad times in stock market. And we look at gold companies and what it costs them to refine whatever the wording is. it's like half the price where gold is today. So they can make good money. They just haven't been very attractive because real estate and stocks have been attractive. I'm a big fan of gold, and it's one of the 4 companies I bought lately was gold.
When do the Q1 numbers come out?
Sometime end of April. I can look it up exactly, but I mean every Tuesday the unemployment numbers come out for the week. But the Q1 numbers will be coming out shortly in the next few weeks by the end of the month. It'll be interesting, Brady. I have no idea.
Bruno, our dear Bruno, is asking, when this whole thing cools,
Bruno,
is it a good time to invest in starting a new business, or do you think, what is the timetable you suggest to wait?
If you have a good business idea that doesn't require a ton of capital that you can do in your spare time, I say try it. Don't wait. It's about keeping your costs down, keep your overhead down, and if you do that, you can do very well in the long run, no matter what happens. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing if you keep your overhead low. If you're going to go start a business that requires a lot of investment, a lot of overhead, I'd be more cautious about that because we have a lot of uncertainty here that we don't know about. But some of the best businesses in history were started during recessions. Just keep that in mind.
Paul, Michael Jordan asks, at what price are you finally going to go all in on Bitcoin?
Oh, Mr. Jordan. For those who don't know, it's not the real Michael Jordan. It's the fake one. I will never, ever, 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 ever own Bitcoin.
Can you be more clear?
I think everybody knows my opinion. That's probably why MJ is asking that question. He's a friend of yours, Seth. A friend of ours, actually, a friend of mine too. I was a little mean to him the other day when he knocked my Michigan Wolverines. But yeah, I think Bitcoin is just fake. It's not based on anything. As much as people make fun of the dollar and all that stuff, at least it's backed by the US government. And it's still the safe haven today. It's still a currency that's backed by a very strong economy.
Paul, Nicholas is asking, what percentage of your investable cash would you recommend being invested now versus being ready to invest when we see the next floor?
So Nick, I'm assuming
just go back to
I'm assuming you're a guy who's saving for the retirement. You should just, if you're young, just keep saving as time goes on. I wouldn't try to time anything. If you have a small portion of your cash that you want to put to the side and invest in small companies and invest in companies directly, great. But overall, if you're saving for retirement, save every single month. Don't change your plan. If stocks fall in half, do not deviate from your plan at all. Just keep buying every single month. Just keep going up, buying in and out every single month. By the way, another Nick said that the current gambling odds are Trump minus 125, Biden plus 130. So that gives Biden it gives Trump is favored to win as of right this very second. If I'm reading the gambling stuff right? That's what it means when it's minus 125. It means you'll get less money back. For every 100, you have to bet 125 to win 100. And then a plus 130 means you have to bet 100 to win 130. I don't gamble. I don't bet on sports, so I have no idea.
I bet I can get you gambling by the end of the day. Paul, I want to ask you.
Bernie's plus 3,800. Whoa. All right.
One of the things that has been a little polarizing topic on our podcast in the past is the folks that follow Dave Ramsey. We've done podcasts talking about your 6-month emergency fund is costing you millions.
Yep.
I see these memes now that a lot of people are very happy. The people who had this 6-month emergency fund are obviously pretty pleased they had that. Do you want to elaborate on that idea? Do you still stand by those thoughts that
yes. Yes, and here's why. You can borrow against your 401k. You can borrow against those things. So at the end of the day, if you lost your job right now, let's say you would put this money in 10 years ago, you didn't have to say, and now it was worth a couple $100,000. If you needed 6 months to tie yourself over, you could easily have just borrowed against it. Or guess what? Pay the penalty. If it's that big of a deal, pay the penalty. If you really needed the money, pay the penalty. It's still a better idea in the long run to put that money to good use. But as I said before, if you're the kind of person that wants to sleep at night and that really bothers you, you just do whatever makes you sleep at night, because there's never anything worse than not sleeping well if something like this happens. But still, financially, it is better to invest your money into something like a 401k and IRA. And the worst case scenario is you pay your penalties short term. That's it. Because how long is this going to last?
I know one of our super fans, Brady, out in California, said, Dave Ramsey also, on top of the 6-month emergency fund, talks about investing 15% of your take-home pay into retirement. So I want to see what
20%.
What's that?
I say 20%.
20%.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, 20%. By the way, I want to understand. Brody has a question. Would you rather have a pet tiger or pet kangaroo? And would you go on a date, whether go on a date with Carol Baskin or Joe Exotic? Which is a very good question. I'd rather have a pet tiger, right, Lise?
Were you ever close to getting an exotic animal?
I wanted to get a monkey a while back. And our house in Mexico has a monkey cage next to it.
Not your monkey, though.
Not my monkey. As for Carol Baskin versus Joe Exotic, that is a toss-up. Because Carol Baskin, when she says, "Hello, all you cool cats and kittens," it literally is the creepiest thing I've heard. Plus, she may have murdered her ex-husband for money, which I think is kind of a deal breaker for me. I don't know if it is or not. But I'm going to go ahead and say I'll still rather go out with Carol Baskin because I'm still a heterosexual male. So that's that.
That remains to be seen, Paul.
Do you want me to bring proof? Lisa's right here. So is this bull market, Andrew asked, is this bull market going to last another 10 years? You said, I did not say the economy was stronger by Christmas. I did not say that, Andrew. When you expect another burst to drop us another 30%? I don't know, and I don't know. All I'm sitting there saying is based on historical valuations, stocks will go a lot lower than today. And then once these economic numbers come out, I have to think there will be another drop in stocks. Maybe there won't be because the last 2 days were up 10% and I have no idea why. I literally have no clue why.
Do you think there's some people out there thinking that I see the stock market recovering a smidge and then I see the sun coming out and I think better days are ahead, Paul. Have we reached the bottom already?
I don't think so, but it's funny. I sold my short out was close to the bottom. This recent one, everybody's like, "Oh man, you timed that perfectly." I'm like, okay, I got lucky, but I think it goes lower from this. And the reason I got out of my short was it was irrational how much it was falling every day. Like literally it was falling. I'm just like, there hasn't even been a bounce back up. This doesn't even make sense. I'm like, let me cash in my recovered gains, let's just cash in and go from there. So I just don't think we're at the bottom yet, guys. We have to learn this lesson the hard way. And when I heard so many people saying buy the dip, I was like, when I didn't hear people scared, that's what told me we weren't at a bottom yet. We need people being like, this doesn't even make sense to me. I'm too scared it's going to go to zero. We didn't see that. I heard nobody saying we're going to zero. That didn't make sense to me. We have to get to the point where people think it's going to zero like we did in 06, 07, and 08, and 09. Literally, people were like, this is going to go to zero. We didn't get that this time around at all. We got people saying, oh, I want to put more money in. You know what I mean? It didn't even make sense.
When do you think you'll, I know you guys look at deals every day.
Every single day. We actually hired somebody to start calling owners this week, and he's been doing a great job for us.
What are you going to be doing? What's his job? What are you going to be doing?
He's going to be calling owners and saying, do you want to sell? And we're going to start buying a ton of real estate.
People?
Yep. Our goal is 1,000 units a year for the next 10 years.
Paul, that's a lot.
The only thing that stops that, it's not the money. The thing that stops it is not finding the deals.
Say all this again. I mean, that's
1,000 units a year. Listen, it's always been my goal is to have
10,000 units.
But 1,000 units a year has always been the goal of mine, but we just haven't been able to because the market's been so tough. The only thing that stops it is not finding the deals, or the deals that we do find have to take so much work. We can't possibly rehab 1,000 units. We can't possibly rehab 1,000 units a year in 2 or 3 years. That's what it'll take. So we're gonna be big buyers of properties. We're going to be buying a lot of properties, as many as we can, just like I did in 08, 09, 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to buy as much as I can in the next 10 years as well. Have to do it.
Wow. Okay. Some funny ass comments in here. Do you want to bring up the idea of why you pulled out of the New Mexico house?
Yeah, there's 2 reasons why. One, the biggest reason actually wasn't economically. The biggest reason was
let me set the premise. So Paul and his investment group owns 2 beautiful mansions in Mexico, and you basically one of the main business generators for you guys is they donate a week's time for charities. Charities keep all the winnings, and then you keep the business going. And you guys were looking at a 3rd house down there, and it was all but done. And then talk about what happened.
So first off, everybody, if you don't mind, subscribe to our YouTube channel, the subscribe button below. It helps us out a lot. Please do that. The reason I left the 3rd home the neighborhood started to impose a 200 peso per day fee in all guests. That's about $10 per person per day, which is about $600 per week. That was greatly affecting the business. We could afford it, but it would cut our profit down by 75,000 a year, which was a big hit to our profit. So we said, why do that when there's plenty of other places in the world we'd like to own real estate? But the second thing was, why buy right now? Actually, you know what? That's not even it. It was just purely because of the fee. It wasn't even because of the economy and anything like that. It had nothing to do with that. It was just the fee, the neighborhood fee. That's another example of a tax that was imposed on us. And I sat there, and when everybody says, oh, rich people don't care about taxes, guess what? I canceled a $800,000 investment because of a $500 a week fee.
Do you think that house will drop? Would you come back to that house at 400,000 or 425?
I would come back at that if the neighborhood fee was eliminated. That's what bothered me. For me to justify that investment with the current fee, I have to basically pay half the price for that house, and they'd rather just keep it, and they should just keep it at that point.
Paul, how are you spreading your investment across the companies that you've picked? Would it be something like 200K across 100 companies at 202K a pop? Or are you going to go big on certain single stocks? Great question, right?
Yeah. So
it's really diversify, or are you diversifying or finding ones you really love?
So my goal is to get around 20 stocks that I love. At 20 stocks that are spread across multiple industries, you can get rid of all market. You don't need to buy 500 stocks to be market spread. So my goal is to buy the 20 best large companies I can find that I think can outperform the market. That's it. And it's selling at the biggest discount to value. And I'll basically spread them out 5% across my portfolio. I might keep 10% for very, very small companies I can invest in, like sub 500 million, so I can get really big returns. So call it 90% of my money will be split amongst 20 stocks, which is 4.5% each. That's my goal. Great question, Brady.
Someone asked, I don't know anything about this, Paul. So if I'm sounding stupid, if Cramerica goes public, would you buy? Is that a joke, or it is? Yeah. Sorry.
That's a Seinfeld joke. So somebody here knows I'm a big fan of Seinfeld. Cramerica is Kramer's company, Cramerica Industries. And
I've watched Seinfeld twice. I just don't know that one. So
my favorite episode is where Kramer gets his own intern, Darren, and they have they do the oil in a plastic container. They drop it. It's the hello episode. That's not my favorite episode, but it's one of my favorite.
Is this the end of handshakes, Paul?
No, come on.
I've been reading articles.
Someone says you and I are gonna hug it out pretty soon, bro.
What do you think the social effect will be after the stay-at-home orders are finished, and what is the new normal going to look like, Paul, in your mind?
People, I want you to remember, in 2008 and 2009, the world.
Well, we don't remember, so tell us, Paul. I don't remember at all.
John Galbraith says that financial memory is 4 years. We're going to forget all of this 4 years from now. Even look at 9/11. We changed the way in which we travel, but we're just used to it now. I don't think the social effect is going to be astronomical because we'll be safe again. When everything will be fine again. We will end up getting to the point where we're all acting normal again, and this will all tide its way over. That's what happens every single time we have events like this. That's it.
I mean, I started to get used to this new normal right now. I mean, remember like a month ago when like canceling the Arnold Expo was like pretty radical? And now it's like you can't even have a 10-person birthday party. I mean,
correct.
That looked kind of like a great decision, right? I mean,
yes.
So
by the way, how do we tell people? Somebody just texted me and said, "Where's the question box?" Like, they just type in the chat, right?
Maybe it's not.
Yes, you just type in the chat. If you're on desktop, it should be on the right-hand side of the video. If you're on mobile, it should be down below the video. So just keep an eye out for it. It's down there. People are engaging on it. So it's there.
Yeah.
Me too,
By the
just
way,
refresh.
That was the voice of God for our listeners. That's God. We have God on as a guest. Welcome, God.
Yes, Satan.
I know that some people were saying like rest in peace. Nicholas is saying rest in peace, Arnold. But I have heard, Nicholas, that Arnold actually has now switched his mindset, that he actually was pretty proud of DeWine for making that decision. That I think the Arnold is safe in Columbus, but if it's not, we're gonna lose out on millions. But someone is just saying simply like, how was it in 2008 versus now? I guess this is pretty simple.
This is worse because in 2008 it was companies banks. It was a financial system, which was still really, really bad, by the way. But this is worse because we have an entire shutdown of the U.S. economy, essentially. And nobody's not affected. Even we're affected. Like, we're looking at our collections and our real estate, and it's going to be down. We had a great March. We still had a really good March, but April's already down a little bit. This is worse because it's affecting every single family out there. I mean, every single family can't go out. Every single family can't go buy what they need all the time. You know what I mean? It's just, this is worse. And we're going to have unemployment numbers that are way worse than 08. And we're going to have GDP numbers that are way worse than 08, in my opinion. I don't have any validity to that other than how can it not be? I mean, literally,
That's what I was thinking too. How could it not? I mean, the forced shutdown of just everything is just so colossal.
Yeah. So good question. And then, do you think arm wrestling will be more popular once people are shaking hands again? Arm wrestling will never be popular. Next question.
I was watching some arm wrestling highlights yesterday, Paul. I think, Paul, I think you would do well on this. Have you seen this Russian slapping contest where these dudes slap each other in the face? Yeah.
By the way, were you really watching arm wrestling?
Well, listen, have you noticed on Facebook, like if you stop.
Yes or no? Yes or no question, really quick. Were you watching arm wrestling?
The Facebook feed was filling I stopped at a UFC fight. And then as you start scrolling now, they're going to start throwing more weirder and weirder videos in front of you. And next thing you know, it was arm wrestling. Now, as a child, huge fan of the movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, Paul. You know, you haven't seen that movie because you're a dope, but it's an arm wrestling movie, Paul. It's very, very famous arm wrestling movie. So no, I'm not into arm wrestling, but you didn't arm wrestle when you were a kid, bro? No, you were.
No, I mean, no, I was a weakling.
Well, I was a big kid, so like I was a big
have
kid.
The guns that I have today.
Like arm wrestling was my jam. I actually just I now have a 10-year-old. No, my son is 10 years old now, so I just realized that my son is a little more than half my weight I was at his age. So I weighed about 120 in 4th grade, and he weighs about 67 pounds. So,
so Nick, another Nick. God, we have so many like similar names. Nick asked, he's in Vegas. He said, "Can somebody read that to me?" Because for some reason,
Vegas still has hope. Oh, okay, I see. Vegas still has.
Are we going to recover? I think the city is doomed. Even when things pick back up, who's going to visit? Are people going? Nick, it's not doomed. It's going to be tough, especially these hotels have a lot of debt on them. That will be an issue, but the best ones will survive. There'll probably be a bailout, and people will go to Vegas all over again. It's a city of entertainment. It's going to be fine. It's going to be hard. You guys were hit hard in 08 because of the housing market was really affected in Vegas. I mean, there were prices of 60-70% drops in Vegas. But you guys will be fine. It might take a while. It will be hard. People will go under. There'll be bankruptcies. There'll be restructuring because there is a lot of debt. But that will not change life permanently in Vegas. It is an entertainment city.
You know, Paul, we got a question, a great one, and this I've seen memes about this. Now that everyone's working from home, do you ever see people go into the office full time again? You know, like I had a conversation with my brother-in-law. The idea of driving an hour to a work now that it is. I guess I don't know if it's been proven that we could all work from home, but I mean, like, what will happen with all the downtown businesses that depend on all the lunches, the after work business?
There's going to be a lot of hurt. There's going to be a lot of hurt, and there will be, you know, a lot of people would say, you know what, this working from home is pretty nice. I know Lisa likes working from home here. You know, she's been doing a lot of her stuff, and she's been working from home. So it'll just be something that happens, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of companies that go, hey, maybe we like this a little bit, and it'll affect office and those things that. And we'll adapt. It's not going to be the same way forever, but we'll adapt.
Yeah, that is scary. I have a lot of people in my life that I'm not even incredibly close to, but I'm fearful of them. That, you know, some of the bar owners or bar workers, you know, waitress staffs. We've talked about, I have friends who are in the entertainment. I mean, you know, we had a friend on who owns a trading card and gaming store in Akron. And
he's doing great now, he said, right?
I had reached out because I'd seen articles of other small businesses like that already folding up shop. I mean, I guess, Paul, I'm kind of shocked are you shocked that companies that were thriving over the past decade can fold up shop in 6 weeks?
So it's a great question. Thriving to me is a lot different than everybody else thinks. To me, thriving isn't just we're able to make money. To me, it's about managing that risk. And if you're only making money on lots of debt because the economy is good, that is not thriving to me. A good company is one that keeps their debt low, is able to grow, is able to reinvest their capital at higher rate of return, and not rely on debt to make big returns. So if you're going out of business very, very quickly, you weren't really thriving. You didn't have, I do believe businesses should have 6 months of backup payments, money. I don't think individuals should, because businesses are there to stay in business and to weather the storms. You know what I mean? Because your business can go out and it's very tough to recover from that. I would disagree with what thriving means. To me, Grant Cardone was not thriving. Yes, he was making a lot of money, but he was not thriving. Real estate owners who had 95% debt, developers, that is not thriving. That is making money because of high debt. And a good economy will let you get away with that. A bad economy will not. We are thriving. I will sit there, I have no problem going like this. We're thriving because nobody's going to see a layoff in any of our businesses. You're going to be laid off only if you are not able to perform on your job. We're going to make sure you have a job. You'll be paid. That's because we're thriving. We have plenty of cash. We're going to do better in this downturn. That to me is thriving. And I have no problem bragging about that.
Any industries you've never bought stock in, but looking during these times to buy stock in?
Great question. I don't look at things as like, what's the bottom line is if I can understand how they make money, I'm willing to look at them. So there's never, ever any industries I've ever ignored. Commodities are always the hardest ones for me. And my first purchase was BP in this downturn because I looked at BP's historicals and all that stuff and thought to myself, okay, this is pretty bad for the historicals. I need to get into this one. So great question, but I'll never ignore any industry. It's about understanding how they make and lose money that matters to me. Let's go up to another question two above that. How many businesses people are going under because they're over leveraged? Having a hard time feeling bad for people who are driving BMWs making 50 grand a year that blame the virus for bankruptcy. Thank you very much. Exactly. In 08 and 09, how many people came to me for personal loans and they would say the economy killed me? No, it wasn't the economy that killed you. It was your overspending that killed you, that the economy exposed. You're exactly right. If you're overspending, that's the reason you're going to go under. If you're properly saving, then you'll be fine. Yes, it'll suck for a while, but you'll be fine. If you properly saved, you have enough money to pull off your 401k, doing that, you will be fine. You won't spend a lot of money, and if you get laid off, you can weather the storm with the little bit the government will give you. That's exactly it. How many businesses will go under? I don't know. But if you're over leveraged, do not blame the economy. That is on you. Because if that's the case, it's over leveraged who did it, then everybody out there who lost their job should go under. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I've sort of been I've been mentoring some photographers of late, and I think I've sort of been educating them on the idea that all the competitors that they've been complaining about for the past decade, who are kind of taking gigs from them, they're probably not going to be around. So now's the time to sort of invest in yourself, learn more, and come out of this a little more, come out of this smarter on the back end. At least what I'm trying to do as well. So. James Crowley said, in the last few episodes, you've talked about UBI and funding it with a flat tax. We've talked about how your new idea, onetaxcode.org. What is it, Paul?
Onetaxplan.org.
Onetaxplan.org. Andrew Yang ran a similar idea and funding it with a VAT tax,
VAT tax.
VAT tax. Why is a flat tax better than a VAT tax? Tell me about. I don't even know the
value add tax they have in Europe, and it's basically a really big sales tax. I like that idea a lot too, James. Very good question. I would prefer the VAT tax, to be honest with you. However, the one thing about Andrew Yang's idea that he didn't articulate, I don't know if he really meant it, it also requires a big cut in spending. So give that, my actual UBI was actually bigger than Andrew Yang's. He wanted $1,000 a month per person. I want $1,500 a month per person. I do believe in a sales tax, essentially a sales tax, as, hey, if you're rich and you spend more money, you will pay more in taxes. If you're poor, you'll pay sales tax, the high number, but you'll get the VAT tax, you'll get the UBI to replace it. I just feel like the country can get around an income tax better because they'll want the rich people to pay more. And the idea of a rich person only paying taxes because they're spending a lot, I don't think really sits well with people. I could be wrong. I personally prefer some sort of sales tax. I sit there and say, hey, listen, If you want to go buy a Ferrari for 400,000, more power to you. You're just going to pay 20% tax on it instead of, or 30% tax on it. You'll pay 120 grand in tax. I don't care. I like it more too because it's going to be harder to defraud the government on sales tax. You go to a Ferrari dealership and want to buy a Ferrari or a car, they're not going to sit there and say, hey, if you pay us on the side, we'll waive the sales tax. That's not going to happen. It's much easier for people to cheat the IRS than it is to cheat that. I do like that idea a lot more, James, but I'm trying to get to a ground where both sides can be on the same page. Ironically, we posted this on Facebook recently, and we have a lot of people on Facebook accusing me of being a socialist, which is showing that they're not really reading or listening to the things we're talking about, because I'm clearly not a socialist. I'm just trying to get to a happy medium where we can all understand and agree on the same thing. So great question, James.
Now we have some people are on the chat now kind of talking about the difference in taxing, who it'll hit more, rich versus poor, flat tax, and who it'll hit. I don't know if we want to get into, I think we'd like to keep this a little more progressive and moving forward instead of like maybe talking about taxes as much. It's obviously a very confusing thing, but
well, let's answer Steve's comment real quick. He said, aren't sales tax more regressive and hit the poor harder than the rich? Theoretically, yes, Steve. However, with the extra income and the UBI, that helps the poor more than it helps the rich. So it's kind of like this trade-off. You're right that a regressive that sales tax can be regressive, but at the same point, you can make the argument that my 40% tax idea also hurts the poor more than the rich. But you got to look at it as a combination. I'm trying to sit there and say, listen, don't worry about each component separately. Look at them together. And Steve, it is a very common thing that sales tax are considered regressive. However, it's being compensated for with the extra income that's going to help the poor more than the rich. And that's what you got to look at it as, a combination of both. But great question, Steve.
Mason asked, you talk a lot about based on history. Do you ever think there's not enough history to go off, if that makes sense, he said?
We have 150 years of stock market history to go off of. That's a lot. Could we have more? We've never seen coronavirus as an issue, so we have no history in that. So that's why you always hear me saying, I don't know where this goes. I don't know what happens. I do think we have enough history to go. We have enough booms and busts. We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through every gamut of possibility that we can think of right now. It doesn't mean we've seen everything, but we have a lot of history to go off of to be able to make decisions and ideas and all that stuff. Great question. Miss Sayel asks, how to take advantage of the situation on the business side. Be an opportunistic buyer. Be more aggressive with your advertising. When others are going under, spend what you can on advertising to take their market share. It sounds vulturistic, I guess, like being a vulture, but if you want to grow your business, now's the time to do it.
See, I'm still hesitant with that, Paul. Like, we have Facebook ads running, spending $5-10 a day, and I'm still hesitant. I guess I don't know why. I have people saying online, like, the big companies are offering sales and why can't you? But like, I just feel like is now the time that I'm literally pushing like senior photography on Facebook and seeing what kind of response I get. Like,
well, we're very early in this, Seth. We're very, very early in this. We haven't seen people still could have survived a month or two. I think I remember hearing before not years ago, like last year, that the average person's two months away from bankruptcy. We're really into this thing for a month and a half on the high side. So we're still gonna weed something. We still have to weed a lot of things out here. And a guy like me who has a lot of discretionary income. I was just talking to Mary, my manager today, and she has a great job. She and her husband both work for us. They make good money, but they're also thinking to themselves like, well, let's be careful just in case. It's like, and I joke with her. I'm like, yeah, you're not losing your job. She's like, I know, but it feels right to be careful and not spend as much. So that's going to happen. And then the people who were charging very little and had more overhead to cover, they're going to go to the wayside.
I mean, you talk about the month to month, I guess in some semblance of the world, there's in America, there's, some people say a war on poor people, but like there's the welfare state. A lot of people think that's what's dragging us down. And I've been seeing people post online that, we're just a couple months away from normal people becoming close to poor, right? I mean, not having a ton of money. I mean, like, what do you think?
That's why I like my one tax plan. That's why I like my one tax plan, because it makes sure everybody has enough income. My only concern about the one tax plan is everybody lives off that extra check every year, and then they don't account for it and factor it in when times are tough. But The great news is my one tax plan also includes $700 billion a year in surpluses. So in 10 years, you have $7 trillion to give out when recessions like this happen, not to guys like me, but to middle class and poor America so they can continue to survive. And at $7 trillion, if you need to pay that out over 1 year, let's say let's do the math right now. $7 trillion. If we had that $7 trillion divided by 210 million people above the age of 18, that's $33,000 we can give to everybody in 1 year. $2,500 a month extra because of those savings. It pays for itself. And guess what? Guys like me won't get that check. At that point, it should be based on your income. And you should only be getting it if you make under X amount of dollars per year as a family, because it also tells you go be honest about your income then too. And if you lie about your income, too bad. That's on you.
Paul, Brady's bringing up the idea that we had a guest on Jacob Salem from Easy Metrics.
Yeah.
And he was looking to start investing and said, Brady said, you advised the last guest to invest in more of his business as opposed to getting into real estate and giving better returns. Can you talk about the pros and cons of buying into a business versus a real estate? Now, this hits very close to home for me because you and I have been talking about maybe going in or getting me into real estate the past couple of years. And sure enough, I sort of took my real estate money I had lying around and put it into a small business. And so talk about the pros and cons of buying into a small business versus real estate.
So Brady, quick clarification. When I was talking to Jacob, it's his own business. He understands that better than anybody. So he investing in his own business is going to get the best possible returns for himself. Investing in a small business can be highly, highly lucrative, but the downside to it is it's an all or none proposition almost. Like you can lose everything very quickly. You can lose your entire investment. With real estate, you get less of a return than a business that's theoretically, but the real estate's more likely to be secure. You can still rent. You can still, it's a piece of asset. You can go sell it in the future. If you invest in a small business, not your own business, but buying a small business, it has higher risk to it, which means you should get a much higher return than that.
Sharif said, do you think part of the reason that COVID-19 has spread so rapidly in the West is due to the overprescribing of immunosuppressive drugs versus places where the spread has been so slow? There is some interesting trends of how it took off here and how it's spreading versus other countries like South Korea. But Paul, I don't think you know much about immunosuppressive drugs, do you?
I don't. I hate to say it, but I have no idea how to comment on this, Sharif. I have no clue whatsoever. I know your dad's a doctor. He might be the better person to ask about that one. I really have no clue.
Yeah, the only thing Paul is on is erectile dysfunction meds. So, so listen, like and subscribe below, folks. Paul, I have some interesting guests that we're going to have on here in the coming weeks. There's a lot of small business owners who are just around their house like us. So I've talked to a lot of interesting guests that we're going to be announcing very soon. One guy in Cleveland sells an electronic motorbike across the world.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know if you've heard of this company, but he's going to be an incredible guest. And we have a lot of people who are adapting to the COVID virus and where they're much like 3M and Tesla. They're trying to do as much as they can to help. So we're going to have some cool guests on here in the very near future. So,
well, Brady, one question also, Bob, what made coronavirus different than all the other diseases that were big? I think the big thing here was the spread. It was so quick and so boom, boom, boom. I mean, this is not even close to the highest death rate on any of these diseases. It's just how fast it spread. And I also think about, it was kind of the capitulation point for stocks. So you had a combination of this disease spreading as well as stocks falling a lot, which made both become way worse than they actually were. I believe coronavirus is something to be reckoned with, and we have to make sure we're careful about it. But at the same time, we got to keep it in perspective about what these numbers are. I mean, the death rate isn't what it's saying it is because we don't know how many people actually have had it. There's a lot of people probably had it and didn't feel anything from it. And those are people that we're not including in the data. So if the death rate is 1.5 or 2%, I would argue it's probably more like 0.5% to 0.8%, and which is still bad. Don't get me wrong. This thing is spread much faster. I think I read something like for every person who gets it, they infect 2.2 to 2.5 other people. That's very fast. That's very bad. When the flu is like 1.4.
Yeah, there's still, I think that as of a couple of days ago, there were still 11 states that didn't have lockdown measures in place. They're saying this week's going to be the worst for deaths, almost maybe close to 1,000 a day. I think we just hit over 10,000. But then I read articles where saying in Ohio, at least, because of the actions that were taken so early on, is they're now projecting that that the infected rate is going to slow down, and there's going to be enough beds, unlike obviously places like New York that are really struggling. So,
yep. There's a good question out there. What's the new question?
At what point do you stop investing in your own business and invest in things like stocks and real estate, potentially for a bigger gain?
So I do think that you should invest in those anyhow, but I think you should focus on your own business. But stop investing in your own business when you have a hard time getting a high return on your investment. You want to be diversified as a regular person, invest in stocks, invest in real estate when you can, but put money towards your business if you can grow it and really grow the profit. But at some point, there's going to be a point where you go, I don't want to grow it anymore. I don't need to, or I'm getting such a low return. I'm investing for every dollar I invest, I'm only getting 3 or 4% return. Stop then. When you start getting, it's opportunity costs. Can I invest in stocks or real estate and get a better return? It's just about being diversified. And I'm just telling you that, it depends where you're at the stage in your career. Are you in growth mode? Are you not in growth mode? Those are things to consider along the way. It's hard for me to give one cookie cutter plan to somebody because you don't know. Just like when somebody says to me the other day, a friend of mine's mom said, hey, should I refinance my house? I'm like, well, tell me about your current mortgage, blah, blah, blah. And well, it turns out she's paying $1,000 a month extra on her mortgage. And I'm like, hey, not to be personal, but don't you have enough money to pay off your house? She's like, oh yeah, easily. I'm like, then why not just pay it off? She goes, really? I said, yeah, why have the mortgage then? She goes, okay, I'll pay it off. Because we talked about it. I'm like, why are you paying extra $1,000 a month to your mortgage? You obviously want to pay it off fast and you owe very little. You owe like 20% of your house, just pay it off. And she has plenty of, I think she has 20 or 30 times maybe more than she needs. So why have that? Just pay off the mortgage. Who cares?
Damn, Paul, I had a talk and then you got me all fired up about that. I just had a talking. Oh, okay. I know what it was. Not to get too political, we're not, we don't want to I don't think we want to try and separate people but we do talk about how politics and tax codes can affect businesses, wealth. And so I just keep seeing a lot of people saying that some of the more radical Bernie Sanders ideas are turning into realities that this company is depending on, like universal health care. What do you think about those
so one, I would say it took an extreme event like this to even start to justify Bernie's ideas. Second, let's not make emotional decisions. I still think this country is better because of ideas that are not Bernie Sanders related, like free market capitalism and allowing things does that mean that we can't have some sort of coalescing of ideas? That's what the whole one tax plan idea is all about, which if you go to the website, nothing's on there yet. But if you really want to get the idea, I can send you my write-up on it. Email me at paul@dynastyowner.com or paul@crossroads-group.com, and I'll gladly send it to you. If a justification is Bernie's ideas, I think the argument back is, tell me a country that was socialist that's socialist for a long period of time and it worked. Socialism doesn't work. It only makes a few people very rich, not like capitalism, where there's a lot more people. And socialism, literally only the people who run the government are the rich ones, which is hypocritical. So I don't want to get too much into politics of it because it aggravates me. But if this is the justification you need to support socialism, more power to you.
What about universal? What about other countries who have universal health care? I think
there's a way to do everything in a more cost-effective manner, and I've never seen a place in which the government does it most cost-effectively. Every single quote-unquote liberal and socialist I know, when I talk about the government with them, they express frustration in how inefficient the government is, yet they want to give them more money. Okay, more power to you.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that people will determine the best way to go spend their money. And if you don't trust people to do that, then how are you really in favor of freedom? If you don't trust people to make their own decisions, then how are you in favor of freedom? You're basically telling somebody, you're not smart enough to handle your own life. We're going to handle it for you. If that's what you really believe, hey, more power to you. And I'm sure there are people who can't handle their own life. Well, then why are we supporting them? I don't get it.
Mason's asking what happens first. The U.S. has a surplus or Michigan football beats Ohio State? Serious question.
Michigan football beats Ohio State. Go fuck yourself, Mason. And I hope you die of coronavirus.
Too soon, Paul? Too soon on that one?
Guys, I'm a personal friend of Mason's. He thinks he's a big shot because his sister went to Ohio State. And this whole Michigan football versus Ohio State is really adorable. And it's just like everything in life. There's memories are short term, and that's fine. It's been a rough 18 years for us, 16, 17 years, and we'll see what happens.
I don't think a surplus is coming anytime soon. What's the deficit? 25 trillion or something?
In the last 40, 50 years, we've only had a surplus in 3 of the years. And they were in the last 3 years of Clinton's presidency. And it took a combination of Democrats and Republicans working together to get that done.
Interesting. All right, Paul. This has been great. It's been over an hour.
1 hour. Wow,
Yeah.
It's already been an hour.
This has been
Next time I
great.
should do it while doing cardio.
Final question, Paul. What do you feel about men wearing white pants? Now, you own white pants, or at least
I do
white
not own white pants.
pantalones bajo, or what is that, short
I
pants?
do.
Little bit.
I do not own white
You
pants.
own white.
What
Yeah,
makes
you own
think I
like white, like
pants?
little. You have a. Hold on a second. You have a matching all white tennis outfit with your girlfriend that you guys wear and frolic around the tennis court in.
Oh, tennis
Is this
is
correct?
different. Tennis is different. That. Yes, but tennis is different. There are some clubs that require you to wear all white, like Wimbledon. By the way, your internet sucks. I see you so choppy. What the heck, bro?
Oh, really? Sorry. I
think
pay
we've
for a
lost that.
gig per second. Oh, really? Wow. Shoot.
You know, it's probably
Oh, sorry.
Lisa's
Paul,
internet.
are you there?
It's probably Lisa's internet. I'm here. Are you here?
I can hear
Oh,
you.
boy. All right. Well, either way, are you saying we're done with this? It's been an hour.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Let's wrap. I mean, now the comments have just been people arguing about OSU versus Michigan. So this has been great. Paul. We had a bunch of great watchers, great some of our super fans.
Listen, we had a great turnout. We got 41 at one point there. That's a great turnout. It was good. It was really good. Now we want to do more of these because they're a lot of fun.
Thanks all for watching. And again, thanks for the support. We're going to go on again. Paul will be sharing some of the stocks that he's in love with, and I'll be buying as well. And so this will be exciting time for, I guess, Paul, people like us, but not everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Follow us on YouTube. Learn from us podcast. Thanks, guys.
I'm gonna stay on, right, Seth?
Yeah, sure.